Across the developed world, an uncomfortable truth is coming into sharper focus. The arithmetic behind modern pension systems is collapsing, and the foundations that supported retirement security throughout the 20th century are beginning to crack. What once looked like a stable social contract, work for several decades, contribute to a national fund, and eventually enjoy a dignified retirement, now resembles a fragile promise built for a world that no longer exists. In the mid-1950s, the economic outlook seemed reassuring. In the United States, 16 workers supported every one retiree. The system was flush with contributions. Demographics were young, optimistic, and rapidly expanding. Fast forward to today, and that ratio has shrunk to fewer than 3 workers per retiree. And remarkably, America is still considered one of the best-positioned countries in the developed world. Elsewhere, the demographic picture is even more alarming. Japan's working-age population has fallen by roughly 14 million people since 1995, while France, one of the world's richest nations, now allocates around 14% of its entire GDP to pensions alone. That figure is among the highest on Earth and continues to climb. The core of the crisis is brutally simple. Pension systems were designed in an era when families were large, life expectancy was shorter, and societies could rely on a steady influx of young workers to offset the cost of retirees. But the world has changed dramatically. Global life expectancy has risen by nearly 30 years. Fertility rates have collapsed to historic lows, and in almost all developed countries, birth rates now sit well below replacement level. By 2050, 1 in 6 humans on the planet will be over 65, compared to 1 in 11 today. The economic consequences of this shift are profound. Fewer young people means fewer taxpayers entering the system, fewer contributors to social funds, and ultimately, fewer shoulders to carry a growing financial burden. Yet despite the obvious mathematics, most governments appear unwilling or politically unable to act. Any attempt to reform pensions involves painful trade-offs, asking people to retire later, contribute more, or receive less. Each option is politically radioactive. Meanwhile, the destabilizing effects are already visible. Key economies face enormous funding gaps, stretched budgets, and, in some cases, the prospect of insolvency. And by the raw numbers alone, the situation is likely to deteriorate before it improves. This raises a series of urgent questions. Is the global pension crisis solvable? What happens if we fail to act? And are there any nations forging a credible path forward? While policymakers grapple with demographic challenges, workers face another seismic shift: the rapid advance of artificial intelligence. Nearly half of the global workforce fears technological unemployment, yet most people still believe the disruption will spare them, at least until it arrives abruptly and personally. This mix of denial and anxiety highlights how unprepared many are for the future of work. That is why initiatives like OutSkills 2-day AI mastermind training, attended by over 10 million people worldwide, have attracted attention. Their Black Friday initiative to offer the program for free underscores a broader trend. Individuals increasingly need to reskill themselves as traditional economic safety nets weaken. AI is not just reshaping industries, it is reshaping expectations of job security, savings, and retirement itself. But even the most advanced workforce training cannot patch the structural weaknesses of pension systems, which operate on much longer timelines. Modern pensions are typically based on a pay-as-you-go model. The contributions of today's workers are immediately redistributed to today's retirees. There's no personal vault, no dedicated account with a retiree's name on it. This model once flourished, relying on booming post-war populations, robust economic growth, and expanding labor forces. Those conditions are long gone. In the United States, the worker-to-retiree ratio has dropped from 16 to 1 to 2.7 to 1. By 2035, the Social Security trust funds are projected to run out of reserves. Payroll taxes will only cover about 83% of promised benefits. For an average retiree living off $1,900 per month, that means losing roughly $300, a devastating cut for millions who rely almost entirely on their Social Security checks. Inflation compounds the problem, steadily eroding the real value of fixed benefits. States are also struggling. As of 2022, state-level pensions were underfunded by more than $1.27 trillion, with chronic shortfalls in Illinois, New Jersey, and Kentucky. Japan faces a different but equally severe crisis: the disappearance of its workforce. With a median age nearing 50, the country is aging faster than almost any other nation in history. By 2050, nearly 40% of Japan's population will be retirees. Pension spending already consumes more than 9% of Japan's GDP, and public debt has soared past 250% of national output. Compounding the issue is Japan's employment ice age, a generation locked out of stable jobs in the 1990s, now approaching retirement with insufficient savings and limited access to pension benefits. China's situation is just as complex. Its pension system is relatively young, but its population is aging at unprecedented speed due to decades of the one-child policy. By 2050, China will have more elderly citizens than the entire population of the United States today. Government projections warn that the National Pension Fund could run dry by the early 2030s. Globally, the World Economic Forum estimates a staggering $400 trillion retirement savings gap by 2050, 4 times the size of the current world economy. Politicians, however, remain reluctant to act. Reforming pensions is almost universally unpopular. Raising the retirement age led to mass protests in France in 2023. Cutting benefits risks impoverishing millions. Increasing payroll taxes fuels intergenerational resentment, with younger workers already skeptical that they will ever receive benefits themselves. Privatization experiments, like Chile's in 1981, initially appeared promising, but later revealed deep flaws as market volatility and low contributions left retirees shortchanged. Some nations have experimented successfully with hybrid systems. Australia's mandatory superannuation program is often cited as a model, forcing consistent contributions into individual accounts that grow over decades. While not perfect, it has eased pressure on public finances and reshaped how Australians think about retirement. Still, no model has fully solved the problem. The looming question is whether governments can adapt quickly enough to avoid a generational crisis, or whether the pension systems built for the 20th century will buckle under the weight of 21st century demographics.